Carol was a Christian woman who did everything in her power to raise her family in a Christian way and to live in a Christian way. One day, her oldest daughter came to her, and she had some questions about her faith and about the way that Carol was a Christian woman. She lived a Christian life, and she did everything that she could to raise her children to live a Christian life as well. One day, Carol's older daughter came to her and had some questions about their faith. She said to her mother that she understood why God expected us to live in a certain way. But as she looked at what was written in the Bible, she said, well, I disagree with this way of the Christian lifestyle, but I do agree with this way of the Christian lifestyle. And she asked her mother, well, how am I supposed to handle that? Her mother looked at her and said, when it comes to living for Christ, you either do it or you don't. You either put yourself into it completely or you don't do it at all. When it comes to living the Christian life, we don't get to pick and choose what we want to do. That's what we're going to talk about today as we continue in our look at the Sermon on the Mount. Today we're going to look at chapter 5, verses 17 through 20. And we're going to title this section, You Don't Get to Choose. Now, so far we have gone through the Beatitudes and Jesus expressing that we who believe are the salt of the earth and that we are the light of the world. That we should be salty. In other words, we need to live in a way that we are a change agent within the world. And also, we are light. That we should not attempt to hide who we are. We should not attempt to hide what we believe. But we should be the people God has called for us to be. Now, in today's text, we're going to see Jesus talking about the fact that he has not come to destroy the law of the prophets, but that he has come to fulfill it, and what that means for the listener. This is the New International Version, chapter 5 of Matthew, verses 17 through 20. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law of the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I tell you that until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of the pen will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. Therefore, anyone who sets aside one of the least of these commands and teaches others accordingly will be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever practices and teaches these commands will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. So we have here maybe some who think that Jesus has come to destroy the law. And Jesus says, no, that's not the case. I have not come to destroy the law. I have come so that the law through me might be fulfilled, and not just parts of the law, but all of it. I have come that all the law might be fulfilled through me. And then he goes on to say that you have to take it all. You don't get to pick, you don't get to choose what parts of the law you think are convenient. You don't get to choose and pick what part of the law you want to obey and what parts you don't. Verse 19 says, therefore, anyone who sets aside one of the least of these commands and teaches others accordingly will be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. So, even if it seems like a small thing to you, you don't get to just set it aside. You take all or you take nothing. And that's the way that we have to look at our Christian faith. That's the way we have to look at our relationship with God. We either take it or we don't. We either accept it or we don't. We either going to live according to the way that God has called us to live, or we won't. Now, here's the thing that can be difficult about that. God may call you to do something different than from someone else. God may call you to be a teacher. He may call you to be a pastor. God may call you to work in transportation, engineering. He may call you to be a cashier. He may call you to a certain place, a certain time, for a certain season in your life. And the fact is, are you going to listen? And then we also know that the Bible is God's Word. It's not a rule book. It's not a book that's full of a bunch of rules, but it does give us an example of how we are expected to live as Christians. And the primary example of that is Jesus Christ himself. And so, yes, there are things in the Bible that are aspects of Christian living that in our culture and our society today we may not like, but we take it all, or we take none of it. Because what does he say? He says, whosoever practices and teaches these commands will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. We don't get to choose, my friends. The only choice we do get to make is, are we going to follow God or not? I think when we look at the Bible, it's best put, the best way that it's put is by Joshua, who says, choose this day who you will serve. And if we're going to make the choice to serve God, we need to attempt as best we can to serve him fully. It's just like the mother speaking to her daughter. We don't get to choose. God bless you, my friend.